We had the first meeting of the coordination platform that has been put in place, as agreed by President von der Leyen and President Zelensky on the 9th of May. This was a first introductory meeting which included representatives from Ukraine plus representatives from the 5 member states. And it allowed for a discussion on how this platform can help support this process and facilitate and improve the functioning of the solidarity lanes, with the aim of ensuring that this good flow of trade, imports and exports from Ukraine, because at the end of the day, what we are trying to do here is to help Ukraine that is facing a very difficult situation following Russia's invasion. So in this coordination meeting, of course, which will meet regularly, there is an opportunity to exchange and discuss on the application of these provisions.
Yes, Suzanne.
Just to pick you up on that, I mean, you're saying the main aim is to help Ukraine, but it appears to some people, including the Ukrainians, the main aim of this deal is actually to help these 5 member states, that it's not helping Ukraine, what the EU has done here.
Well, let's not forget that we have extended the suspension of all duties coming for products coming from Ukraine. The first suspension took place 1 year ago, and now we are renewing this suspension for 1 extra year. So this is already helping Ukraine and making sure that they can continue to trade, not only for the European Union, but also for third countries. And that's why we put in place a provision that these preventive measures would only mean that these particular 4 products would not be allowed to be introduced into these countries, but only for transited purposes. So it's just limiting for a time, very limited period of time, the circulation of these products within these countries, but is not at all limiting the products arriving to other markets, be it in the EU, be it in third countries. And this is very important to show our solidarity and our support for Ukraine. And then we put in place this platform because we realized that there were logistical bottlenecks, that the solidarity lanes were not functioning properly, that many of these products were staying in the 4 countries and were creating disruptions in their markets. And this platform will allow, and is allowing, for these open and frank discussions on the potential difficulties and challenges to make sure that we can overcome them, find practical solutions, and ensure that Ukraine continues to benefit from this suspension.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Myriam on this issue? Sur ce point, David?
Yes, thank you. Myriam, when Poland introduced the first unilateral measures, the Commission said that it was unacceptable and against the EU rule, since it was a trade issue and EU competence. If I understood well, Hungary has still some unilateral measure in place, and I'm wondering if you are assess the Hungarian measures, and if you can do something about that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's one of the things we insist on since the beginning of these unilateral measures, is that we needed a common EU approach, and that's why we put forward a package at EU level that was agreed by the 5 countries concerned. And in this package, which was end of April, these unilateral measures had to be removed. 4 countries have already removed the measures. We are in contact with the Hungarian authorities. As a result of this lack of removal, we still haven't been able to push forward the support package, to approve the support package, the financial package that we presented as part of this deal. So this is something that is still pending, but we hope, as I said, we have this mechanism of dialogue with the countries, also in the coordination platform, but outside the coordination platform. So we hope to be able to address this soon.
Any other questions on this issue? Yeah.
Yes, my name is Katalin Nagy from Hungarian Radio. Not only Hungary, but 5 or 6 affected countries request the extension. And the fact is the eastern part of EU's economy is in trouble due to Ukrainian grain dumping.
So, sorry, the press room is not to make statements. The press room is to ask questions. So I would what's your question, please? Wait until it's read.
Yes. Did you know this information? Are you agree with this situation?
Yeah.
I mean, we are aware of the logistical bottlenecks and difficulties that these countries are facing due to the increased imports of certain grain products from Ukraine, and that's why precisely we have agreed this common approach that was agreed end of April, where we have different pillars. One of the pillars was the preventive measures, but then we had also the support package that I just mentioned, and then the Commission also explained that it was ready to launch a safeguard investigation, which is foreseen under the suspension of all duties from Ukraine when there is an important increase of certain imports from Ukraine. We can launch a procedure to make sure that we can introduce the necessary measures. That is something that takes a bit more time under the current new regulation that will enter into force now. It's shortened and is made faster. It will be only 3 months. So we are also ready to consider this option to address the difficulties.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on this issue? No? So, Suzanne, we'll let you open the floor on the other issues.
Hi, separate issue now. Thank you, Eric. It's on the latest on the Kosovo-Serbia situation, and wondering, is there any update on this? Is the High Representative planning on holding any meetings? The Kosovan Prime Minister was publicly quite, how would I put it, defiant in interviews on Sunday, and wondering what is the view here from Brussels given the central role of the EAS in the Pristina-Belgrade dialogue?
Thank you, Susanna. The latest is what was already said last week and recalled most recently last Saturday in the declaration by High Representative on behalf of all 27 member states, where they asked for immediate actions to de-escalate the situation. The EU Special Representative Miroslav Lajčák is travelling to the region. He will be in Pristina later today and in Belgrade tomorrow, accompanied also by the US Deputy Assistant Secretary for Western Balkans, Mr. Escobar. And they are going to follow up on the European and American calls on Serbia and Kosovo to de-escalate immediately the situation and to take steps that provide sustainable solutions. And the platform for sustainable solutions, to look for sustainable solutions, is indeed the EU-facilitated dialogue. And of course, we are always ready to host and call for a meeting of the next high-level dialogue between President Vučić and Prime Minister Kurti when the conditions are right, when they both agree. But at this stage, the most important thing is the de-escalation, concrete steps on the ground. And exactly for this, we have the EU Special Representative Lajčák on the ground, both in Pristina and Belgrade. And then after coming back, he will report to the High Representative. High Representative will report to the Member States, and they will decide next steps.
Any other questions on Kosovo-Serbia dialogue? Any other questions on foreign affairs for Peter? Yes, Mose.
Thank you, Eric. Well, it could be both foreign affairs, perhaps also rule of law. I'm referring, let's say, to the issue of Sweden's application to NATO. And as perhaps you know, Sweden has enacted a new amendment of its anti-terrorism law, which entered into force on the 1st of June, which will criminalize not only, let's say, terrorist acts, but also the support or participation in terrorist organizations. And obviously this is a kind of concession to Turkey in order to convince them to accept Sweden's application. And that's one, okay, it's not any longer a proposal, but it's entered into law in Sweden. So my question is whether the Commission or you have any comments to that, if that really is in line with European practice on anti-terrorist. Thank you.
You're asking us for an assessment of the Swedish law, or the fact that the law would have been adopted in order to comply with requests from Turkey?
Yeah, it's both, I suppose. but I think it's quite a sensitive issue in Sweden at least, and I think it was scrutinized by a law council in Sweden which didn't really approve it. So from now on, if you, let's say, promote or support or finance or express any positive opinion, I suppose, of a terrorist organization, you can be sentenced to prison.
Okay. On the specifics of the Swedish law, I'm not sure there is much that we can say at this stage. Yeah, Christian says that we will have to come back to you bilaterally. Peter left a bit quickly. Any other questions on foreign affairs? Even though we had this interlude. Okay, I only see one hand raised, and I believe it's on another issue. Virginie, à toi.
Bonjour, vous m'entendez?
Hello, can you hear me?
Et nous te voyons.
Yes, we need to be able to see you.
Je voudrais faire un peu de pause sur les dossiers polonais. Donc, je voudrais déjà savoir sur le dossier, où est-ce qu'on en est très concrètement.
About the relaunch and recovery plans, I'd like to know
donc les 1 million par jour de
about the 1 million euro per day.
Quel montant ça représente? Ce qui a été prélevé, j'imagine la Pologne n'a
and the
pas
amount
payé.
now, I'm not sure if Poland has actually paid into the fund.
Ça représente
This represents
du manque d'argent pour
a
la
lack of
Pologne.
money for Poland.
Voilà, je pense pas qu'il y ait d'autres dossiers
I'm not really sure if there's other
concernant la Pologne.
financial documents with regard, or financial files with regard to Poland.
Les sommes un peu en tête, quoi. Qu'est-ce que ça représente par
I thought to get it right in my head what exactly it represents, the cohesion fund,
des ordres de grandeur. Voilà, de quoi
all these different things. What are we talking about exactly?
Je ne sais pas si on va pouvoir te dresser un portrait financier.
I'm not sure if I can give you an entire precise overview of all the budgets and all the financial measures with regard to Poland, because this is quite a vast subject, so I think we should concentrate on the two main points that you raised. We'll start off maybe with Balázs.
Non, pardon, c'est avec Christian
No,
sur
sorry, I'm
les
Christian.
montants.
With regard to the amounts
que représentent les astreintes imposées par la Cour de justice à la Pologne,
restrictions imposed by the Court of Justice
et ensuite on viendra
on Poland
sur
in their judgment, and then we'll touch on the recovery and resilience plans after that with Verlet. So Christian, over to you. Hello, Virginie. I think I can do a quick summary. So, with regard to the sums, in this case. And we're actually expecting a judgment from the court today. On the 14th of July 2021, the Court of Justice started a procedure against Poland. Because Poland has not taken necessary measures to conform with the judgment of the court dated on the 7th of October 2021. There was a restriction of €1 million placed on Poland by the President of the Court. This restriction decreased on the 3rd of November 2021.
Nous avons envoyé un nombre de
So during this period in 2021, we had a number of calls for payment. Trying to find the exact French word for calls of payment. So we sent 16 calls for payment to Poland, covering the period 3rd of November 2021 up to 20th of April 2023. So you can do the maths yourself there. It's over €500 million, I believe, but maybe you can do the maths exactly yourself. After this, you will remember on the 21st of April, the Vice President of the Court of Justice confirmed in their judgment that Poland were still not fully in conformity with the judgment of the court, but they did believe that Poland had taken a certain number of measures to remedy the situation. So it was reduced by €500,000 per day. was reduced up to the period of the judgment, and we have not sent any calls for payment up to this point.
Merci. Donc
Thank
ça,
you
c'est sur le premier point.
very much. That's on the very first point. Now on the second point, I will ask Verle to come up with regard to the state of play on the recovery and resilience plans.
Oui, merci beaucoup pour
Yes, thank you very much for your question.
Donc,
So where are we?
Le 17 juin, comme pour rappel, le Conseil
On the 17th of June last year, the Council approved the Polish Recovery and Resilience Plan, as you know, which was composed of 23 billion euros in grants and over 100 billion in loans. We've explained several times here in the press room, Poland has been engaged in meeting 4 super milestones, as we call them, which are linked to the strengthening of important aspects with regard to the freedom of the judiciary in Poland. This signifies that no payment under the RRF was possible to Poland until such time as Poland had fully assured the implementation of these 4 super milestones. And as is the case for all member states, we do not make any comments on ongoing discussions on the plan. We are, of course, in regular dialogue with all the member states with regard to the implementation of the plan. Thank you very much, and perhaps as well just one quick clarification with regard to the cohesion fund that you also mentioned, which is also a dimension of the question. So we're having a bit of a spokesperson musical chairs here, everyone coming up. This is also a very crucial element. Yes, thank you very much for the question with regard to the cohesion fund. As you know, this is particularly important. And what's very important is the respect of the self-assessment. The self-assessment that the member states make with regard to the application and respect or non-respect of specific conditions before proceeding to financing. The self-assessment, if it is negative, then you know that there will be reimbursements of the reimbursement of expenses will not be possible to member states, and the payments, the pre-financing payments as we call them, will be paid to the member states to be able to launch their programs. And they're also not possible to reimburse any costs linked as well. But there will be reimbursements for costs linked to for member states to try and meet their objectives and goals. Thank you. Virginie, you have a follow-up question?
Oui, je voulais juste vérifier
yes, I'd like to just verify one thing.
Pour le plan de relance,
so for the Relaunch and Resilience Fund, is there a particular moment
pour la Pologne,
where you can see payments being made out to Poland, or is it simply stopped?
C'est 2026.
It's 2026. Is it before that?
D'un point de vue légal,
because from a legal perspective,
peut perdurer longtemps.
It could take some time. Yes, there are limits in the regulation on the RRF, and particularly with regard to the engagements. I think Verle can explain everything on that to us. Yes, Virginie, as you know, the limit for drawing down these funds under the RRF is the 31st of December 2026. As you know, the facility was and is a temporary instrument.
Voilà.
Excellent.
Alors, y a-t-il d'autres questions
Any other
sur
questions
ce sujet?
on this subject?
David.
Oui, merci. Et pardon de continuer le bal des
very much indeed.
porte-parole.
And sorry for continuing this musical chairs. I had a question for Verle, actually.
Comment ça marche?
I'm just wondering how it works in this particular instance, because
faire des déboursements.
Since you can't disperse these funds,
le gouvernement polonais
does that mean that the Polish government carries on with their projects, investment projects, for example, a bridge or whatever? I'm not familiar with the plan, but I'm just wondering whether they've already initiated projects, and then there will be a decision on reimbursement if they comply with these milestones that you mentioned, or is all implementation of the project stopped until you're clear about that. Now, Balázs touched on this, I think, possibly, talking about the order for payment, these requests. Has Poland actually paid up when they receive those requests, or are they doing what we call offsetting?
Je pense qu'on est dans le cas de figure second principalement. Mais sur la question que tu as posée à Verle, offsetting,
but since you asked Verle, I think it's pretty clear. Let's hear the answer. Well, yes, it's a very clear-cut situation. If a member state decides whether or not to press ahead with implementation of various measures
qui sont dans le plan.
That are in the plan, and they are free to do so. So, essentially, nothing would prevent Poland from pressing ahead with the investment they require, but what's important are the payment requests that have come in from the European Commission. Looking to Balázs about offsetting, that's normally how we get the funds that were mandated, required by the Court of Justice. Mathieu.
Oui, bonjour Eric.
Yes.
Tu m'entends?
Hello Eric, can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you and we can see you. Go ahead.
C'est sur les 4 milestones du plan de
super
milestones
under the Relaunch and Resilience Plan. Could you tell us
l'une d'entre elles ou plusieurs ont
if
été
one or several
mises en œuvre?
Of the milestones have been reached?
Et voilà quoi. Est-ce que vous pouvez donner plus d'informations
sur le contenu? Extra information on the content of those.
Merci. Verle.
Thank you, Verle. What can you tell us on that?
Oui. Donc, effectivement, donc, par rapport aux milestones...
With regard to the super milestones...
Juste une seconde.
Just a moment while I find it.
Donc, par rapport aux milestones, les 4 super milestones...
With regard to the 4 super milestones,
qui visent à
and then there are other milestones based on these are the milestones based on strengthening the role and freedom of the judiciary. I do have an update. I'm just trying to find it now.
On va vérifier ça tranquillement. On n'est pas ici pour vérifier.
We'll take a minute. You can maybe look through your emails and verify that, and then you can come back to the podium. So we'll come back maybe bilaterally to Matthew and anyone else who might be interested in this. Verle would be able to send you the information bilaterally. Thank you.
Y a-t-il d'autres questions sur
Any other questions
la Pologne?
On Poland?
Non, je n'en vois pas.
No, I don't see any other questions for us today.
Tommaso.
Oui, bonjour, Tommaso Gallavotti de l'agence de presse italienne. C'est une question pour Verle.
Press agency. I had a question for Verle again, if I could. Still on the RRF in Italy.
Quelques polémiques dans les derniers jours, mais
I know there's been a bit of discussion about this in the last few days, but it would appear that the Italian government is currently
en train de penser de transférer des fonds
considering transferring funds from the RRF to Repower EU. I just wonder whether you could give us a theory about how much of the funds can in fact be transferred from the Recovery and Resilience Fund to Repower EU. Because there are some state-owned companies that I believe are seeking to make use of those funds. Thank you. Well, it's important to bear in mind that member states are able to put forward a new chapter within the RRF, within the plan, that would seek to achieve the objectives in Repower EU. So it's not about taking money out of one pot to put it into another. The idea is that you're adding a new angle, a new dimension, a new topic to the plan. Now, I'm not sure whether we'll be able to give you a maximum figure of the amount that is to be transferred. Maybe Verle can fill us in.
Oui, donc effectivement, donc comme Eric
Well,
l'a dit,
thank you. As Eric has said,
l'Italie n'a pas encore
just to spell this out, Italy has yet to submit a Repower EU chapter to us, but we are in talks constantly with Italy, as with all member states, discussing on the Repower EU chapter. It's our understanding that Italy will add a Repower EU chapter, including measures seeking to reduce their dependence on Russian sources of energy, and also to kickstart the green transition. As far as the amount is concerned, the total, I don't have the figures here in front of me, but Repower EU comes from various sources. Just to remind you, member states are, well, there are new subsidies, grants under Repower EU that can be channeled towards the RRF. So Italy would then be entitled to claim part of that grant. There's also an opportunity to shift funds under the Brexit Adjustment Reserve and also some of the cohesion funds as well. Well, I would refer you to the fact sheet that we published last May of last year on this very topic, looking at the various topics that can be used to finance Repower EU. Verle, if I could just emphasize that the maximum grants for Italy under Repower EU are 2.7 billion euros.
Oui, David.
Oui, excusez-moi, mais pour éviter toute incompréhension, parce
just to make sure I understood everything correctly, because often with the Italian press we do have misunderstandings. Can the government modify the National Recovery and Resilience Plan
pour prendre de l'argent
to be able to take money, I don't know how much money, but some money
du plan originaire
from the original plan,
mettre cet argent dans le chapitre
this money into the Repower EU chapter?
Ce qui est très important à comprendre,
what's very important to understand is that to be able to
donc dans ce chapitre Repower EU, il faut des nouvelles mesures.
Under this Repower EU chapter, you need new measures, new reforms, new investments to access these funds.
Donc ils ne sont pas encore compris dans le plan initial.
So they're not fully outlined in the initial plan. Follow up?
Oui, ça c'est clair. Je l'ai bien
compris. That's very clear. I understood that.
La question qui est,
my question,
comment dire, technique, mais pas
maybe it's
très
technical
technique.
Question without being too technical.
Changer le plan,
can you change
comme le gouvernement italien
as the Italian government have announced that they want to do,
un amendement au plan original,
an amendment to the original plan,
enlever des projets,
taking projects, whatever they may be, and then taking the money and putting it into the Repower EU chapter with new projects.
C'est ça. Si on peut shifter,
can you shift
utiliser ce mot,
funds, that's the word you
les
use,
ressources du plan de relance
resources from
vers
the original RRP to this new chapter under Repower EU.
Donc, ce qui est clair, c'est que l'ambition de réforme doit
What's clear is that the reform ambition needs to stay the same. That's what we have explained.
Par exemple, dans d'autres États membres,
and for example, in other member states, we've seen Repower EU chapters put in, and usually they involve scale-ups of measures that have already been taken under the initial plan. And that's all that I can say on that for the moment.
En termes de sources de financement, tu sais
qu'il y a un
certain nombre de prêts.
There is a certain amount of loans, money that is in the form of loans,
les États membres,
which is borrowed by the member states,
donc appelé par les États membres le souhaitant,
and can be used by the member states as they wish within the framework of the new Repower EU chapter. So we're talking about financing sources, additional financing sources, with regard to what was already outlined in the original plan. Yes, go ahead.
Non, je t'en prie.
Go ahead.
C'est encore un follow-up. En fait,
yes, another follow-up question.
Pour le plan italien,
as far as the Italian plan is concerned, we're asking about projects
ne seraient plus possible de réaliser
that
parce
could
qu'il
no
y a des
longer
circonstances
be
objectives
carried
qui ne le
out
permettent pas.
because circumstances, objective circumstances would preclude that. We're talking about infrastructure projects, for example.
Aussi à cause de l'inflation.
This is also down to inflation, the energy crisis, and so on. But aside from that, we've observed that it's not been possible to conclude these projects prior to 2026, the end of 2026. So there has been a shift.
Des projets, d'un certain nombre de projets infrastructurels
of the infrastructure projects have been moved to other projects that are entitled to benefit from REPowerEU funding or funding from other sources as well. But it's about these circumstances, this objective criterion. That's the discussion we're having in the Italian Parliament. Do you have any notion of that? Well, thank you for your question. I think it's maybe important just to recap the various possibilities that Italy has about changing its RRF plan. So first of all, there's a technical change that can be made in order to update the grand total, the end amount of the RRF subsidies.
Un petit, donc ça va augmenter un peu. Ça veut,
so in other words, it would be a slight increase, a top-up, about 140 million euros odd. So that's one thing. Secondly, Italy has also advised us of their intention to request additional loans over and above the maximum level that Italy had already requested in their original plan. And the rules allow for the maximum loan amount to be exceeded, so 6.8% of the 2019 GNI, where there are extenuating circumstances. And then the third point, and this comes close to your question, I think, Article 21 of the RRF regulation states that once the Council has adopted a plan and approved it, then a member state, in exceptional cases, is able to request an amendment to some of the particular milestones and targets if there is justification provided for those amendments, so if objective reasons are advanced for doing so. So I think that's important to underscore.
Donc ça, ce sont en fait, et puis justement, pardon, donc il y a
and then one other thing.
Aussi la possibilité, et en fait pas la possibilité, on le
there's also an option, and indeed we encourage all member states to include a REPowerEU chapter in their revised plan.
Ça, c'est important.
So I think that's key.
Merci.
Thank you.
Je ne vois pas d'autres questions.
I can't see any other questions on this particular topic.
Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui?
Are there other questions? Go ahead, Daphne.
Yeah. Hello. Sorry, it's for Miriam. It's not on Ukraine, but it's on the the reimposition of fertilizer tariffs. I think there was a deadline of the 17th of May for a Commission report. I think we're past that now, and there's a deadline of the suspension runs out in July, I understand. I was just wondering if you would give an update where we are, what the Commission has proposed. Is it reimposition of the tariffs or a suspension, a continued suspension? Thanks.
Sorry, I'm not sure which tariffs are you talking about?
It's on fertilizers, urea and ammonia, if you want to know the details.
But tariffs vis-à-vis which?
It was a sort of energy crisis measure to suspend tariffs on these products globally, yeah, okay. And it expires.
I think we'll have to come back to you on that bilaterally, David. No, I don't think we have the answer here. It's a bit too specific. Hold on. Yeah.
Can I ask another question for Tim? Thanks.
Yes.
So, Tim, it's for, I think Šefčovič confirmed on Twitter or retweeted something on Twitter. I was just wondering, it's about the Ukraine gas storage, whether the Commission is in talks with various banks, various international lending institutions about guarantees to enable the storage of gas in Ukraine's underground gas storage. Thanks.
Tim.
Hi, David. Thanks for the question. As you say, I mean, the Vice President has spoken about this in an interview in the Financial Times, and I'm not going to have much really that I can add to his words. I mean, you take those as you read them. So, yeah, the Commission is exploring if and how guarantees issued by public institutions could perhaps support unlocking access to natural gas storages in Ukraine for European countries. I think the broader context, as you know very well, is that last year we agreed on gas storage targets across Europe to ensure our energy security. For the winter, the target for last year, for the 1st of November, was 80% filling, which we reached in advance and actually exceeded. Storage capacity in Europe, in EU storages, reached 95% at its peak last year. The target this year is to reach 90% by the 1st of November, and gas storage today is already at almost 70%. So that's where we stand with the overall storage situation. And as I say, you've seen the Vice President's words on potential support there, but there's nothing much more I can offer.
Okay, follow-up?
I was just wondering if this is impacted at all by the taxonomy rules or any of these rules governing the financing of gas or fossil fuel infrastructure, or are we still under the energy crisis exceptional measures? Thanks.
I don't know exactly what you mean when you say impacted by the taxonomy rules. I mean, the rules that are in place are the ones that we always have to comply by. So, in that sense, yes, everything is always impacted by the rules in place.
Okay, David, did I see? No. Okay. Any other energy issues for Tim while he's on the podium? No. Or climate? No. Any other questions for us today? Odile.
Bonjour. Les récents troubles au Sénégal ne risquent-ils pas de mettre en péril, voire de faire annuler les projets européens de coopération avec ce pays, notamment pour la fabrication de médicaments? Merci.
Now, who wants to take this question? Because it's a tricky. C'est pas une question évidente en termes de répartition.
It's not a very obvious question when it comes to picking who should respond. You're talking about political troubles.
Démonstrations aux manifestations qui ont eu lieu. Attends, il faut que tu attendes que ce soit rouge.
Protests, is that the case?
De mort, et il y a eu ce matin, je crois, il y a une.
This morning, I believe.
Ce week-end, une réponse
maybe it was this weekend. There was a very strong response
des autorités policières.
From the policing authorities in country. And just as an observer, it seems that these troubles will continue, or at least could continue in a country which, despite everything, is relatively stable in a very troubled region.
Mais je pense que toi tu parles.
I think
de notre soutien
You're talking about our support
à la production de vaccins au Sénégal.
To the production of vaccines in Senegal. Is that your exact question? Will this impact European support that we're sending to Senegal and to the region more largely on vaccine production? Is that your question? Yes, vaccine production. But if I remember correctly, there's also projects concerning the pharmaceutical industry being developed with private partners in the area as well. So I'd like to know just a little bit on where we are on this issue.
Nabila.
Merci Odile pour ta question.
Thank you, Odile, for this question.
Nous avons fait une déclaration.
We did make a statement through the spokesperson service at the beginning of the troubles in Senegal, and we said that the European Union is concerned at the increase in political tensions and social tensions in the area.
Justement, les tensions continuent. On déplore la mort
and we
des
do
personnes,
deplore the murder of people and the violence that you mentioned over the last few nights. And in this context, it is essential that the elements of the long, successful tradition of democracy and liberties in Senegal are maintained by all. The European Union does have confidence in the solidarity and in the strength of democracy and the political forces in Senegal to be inclusive and peaceful. And in attempt to respond to your question on the budgetary element and on the loans or the assistance that we give Senegal, we can come back to you on this. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Nabila? Not the case. Other subjects for us today?
C'est une question apparemment technique, mais en fait très politique.
Well, I've got a technical question, but it is somewhat political too. Due diligence with regard to negotiations with the European Parliament, that was approved on the 1st of June. And now we have the trilogue that is underway. Due diligence for enterprises.
Alors, ma question est, il est clair
what I'm asking
que avec
is,
cette directive, les sociétés
it's clear that by means of this directive, companies or businesses concerned will have to stop relations with commercial partners, trade partners in the value chain that do not comply with environmental rights, human rights, social rights that are protected under international conventions.
On est en train d'essayer de s'émanciper de la
we're trying to break free from an excessive dependency on various countries, like China for one, as far as raw materials are concerned, and various components used in manufacturing. How are these companies going to manage if they are required to put a stop to their commercial relationships with China or any other country that fails to comply with various laws or rights if there's no alternative to source a critical raw material or component, at least for now, for the time being, until they have sought an alternative?
La politique géopolitique de l'Union européenne. C'est une question qui je crois, se pose aujourd'hui qu'il y a la négociation en cours.
Means that sometimes there's no other option. So is the Commission expecting that there will be some kind of transitional phase to allow these companies to find a way forward to make sure that they don't end up without these commodities because they're sticking by the rules? Well, firstly, you'll know full well that we never comment on ongoing legislation procedures, and that's exactly the case here, as you said.
La deuxième chose à dire, c'est que
the second comment I would make
évidemment la Commission se préoccupe de manière
is that, of course, the Commission
de la question
broadly is concerned about supply, particularly raw materials and critical raw materials especially, and we've been putting a lot of effort into this for quite some time. We've been reporting on critical raw materials that are required for the working of industry.
Tu te souviendras peut-être que
and you might recall
la présidente elle-même, dans le cadre
the President herself in a recent speech
évoqué à plusieurs reprises la nécessité
many
pour nous de
times
travailler
on
avec nos partenaires,
the importance
notamment dans
of
le
us
cadre
working
de ce qu'on
together with our
appelle
partners,
un club pour les matières premières. Et donc,
setting
le
up
mot-clé,
a commodities club. So I think the
bien
key
entendu, celui de
point
la
here
diversification.
is diversification.
C'est le fait de dire que il faut que
In other words,
les entreprises
it's important to
européennes,
ensure
mais
that
de manière plus générale,
individual companies, but more generally
soient
the
capables
European economy
de trouver les matières
is in
premières
a
dont elle a
state
besoin,
to obtain the raw materials that it requires, not from a single source, of course, because as you've said, that will increase their vulnerability. They need to seek supply from a wide range of sources, and whatever happens, and this incidentally is what the European legislation is trying to encourage them to do, we want industry to talk to their suppliers, companies to talk to suppliers, so that our concerns are taken into account throughout the value chain. So there are various angles as to how we can work on this. But I won't dwell on this at any greater length because, as I mentioned, this is currently being discussed between the co-legislators. Are there any other questions for us today?
I have 2 hands raised in the chat, and I go to, is it Bina? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Please turn on your mic and your camera.
Can you see and hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, thanks for the floor. And I'm not sure if it's for Nabila or someone else because, sorry, I'm still finding out who is for who. So my question is, the High Representative tweeted during his visit in Singapore saying that he had a successful discussion with the Korean defense minister, and he mentioned that he discussed the Ukraine's needs for ammunition. But after this, the Korean defense ministry denied that it was not a discussion. So I was wondering, did the High Representative like some kind of request on the Korean government for the ammunition support, or was it a general statement? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm looking to my colleagues who I think will have to come back to you on that very, very specific question, but a question well noted. Bina, we will come back. Any other questions for us today? Caroline.
Hi, thank you. Caroline Born, Deutschland Radio. I got a question on the Pact on Migration and Asylum about the negotiations that are going on. And I wanted to ask if the Commission has proposed any concrete numbers on relocation, according that the Interior Ministers are meeting on Thursday. And also I read about the number that for countries who do not want to relocate, that they can compensate that by paying 22,000 euros per refugee. Could you confirm this number?
And who's stepping in for Anita, who will come up.
Yes, thank you for your question. That allows me to clarify once more some information that is not really correct that is circulating. I think also Anita had a question this recently about alleged numbers about mandatory locations. So there were, of course, discussions about progress on the pact, as always, recently in the Coreper and 24 May, and of course it will also be, as always, a topic at the Council later this week. But to answer your question, so no, we have not proposed any specific numbers there. The issue is, or our position is, that solidarity must be ensured. This is what we have proposed in the very beginning. When proposing the pact, we proposed a system of mandatory solidarity, and member states are the ones who will be able to decide on the solidarity measure, which can vary between relocation, financial support, operational support. It is important that member states in need of support get it, but the basic concept of the pact is that there is mandatory solidarity of different kinds.
Thank you very much. Any other issues for us today? No, so we will meet again tomorrow for the midday briefing. Thank you very much.
I'll have kids.